On the other hand, we do have some good news for you today, which is some movement in terms, especially of public opinion on labor unions. And one sort of promising thing that the Biden administration did here, I don't want to give him too much credit because Biden said he was going to be the most pro-union president in history. So he set that bar for himself, and he is a long way from meeting that. However, let's throw this tweet up on the screen. His labor secretary, Marty Walsh, he did join a picket line in Pennsylvania of Kellogg strikers yesterday. Here he says, he's quote tweeting a Stephen Greenhouse tweet. Stephen says, in our nation's history, it's been very rare for a Secretary of Labor to go to a picket line to show their support. But Labor Secretary Marty Walsh plans to go to the Kellogg strikers picket line in Lancaster, Pennsylvania on Wednesday. That was yesterday, show his support, and he did in fact go. And Walsh says, I grew up in a working class family. I'm the son of immigrants and a proud second generation laborer. I have always stood with America's working people and will continue to do so as your Secretary of Labor. See you there. He later posted a photo of himself alongside the workers. And this is significant. It is a major change from, of course, it's different from anything that Republicans ever do, but it's also a big shift from, say, the Clinton era 90s.
Big shift, yeah.
When Democrats were happy to either actively throw unions under the bus, which many of them did, or to just allow them to wither on the vine because they weren't the cool demographic of, up and coming white collar yuppies that the Democratic Party was going after at this point. And you can also see, partly this is politicians responding to where the public is at this point. There's a new survey out from Data for Progress that finds overwhelming support, and we can put this up on the screen, for recent worker strikes. 74% approval of those recent worker strikes, everything that we've been covering, John Deere and Kellogg's and earlier on Nabisco, that includes 60% of Republicans, so a strong majority of Republicans. Here's the partisan breakdown there. You've got independents support at 72%, Republicans 60%, Democrats at the highest level of 87%. So there's a little bit of a partisan divide here, but pretty strong, overwhelming public approval for these workers who are taking matters into their own hands and demanding more from their employers. This tracks alongside with something else we've mentioned to you before, which is the highest level of support for unions since 1965. You have 68% of Americans now saying that they approve of unions. That is a huge spike from during the Great Recession when that favorability bottomed out at 48%, which as a bottoming out is actually not all that bad. Joe Biden would love to have those approval ratings right now, but a spike from 48% to 68%, quite significant, and you see it showing up in support for these striking workers.
That's really the interesting part here, which is that beneath all of the culture war surface, there is a huge revolution happening in labor, not just like organized labor, but the workforce in general. And you see there is so much grassroots support. I try to track it in terms of our popular culture. People were sending me on Instagram like text chains of bosses who were saying, hey, you have to do clopening or something like that. And the per worker just texting back like, no, I'm done. I'm not coming. They go, wait, hold on a second. They're like, let's talk. Don't quit. We can talk tomorrow.
Whereas before I just would have been, all right.
Yeah, like, okay, thanks, sir. And the guy's like begging the employee in the text, be like, please. And he's like, screw you. I'm done with you. And you can just see people can feel very willing to go tell their bosses to screw off because there's a huge amount. I mean, I saw a sign of McDonald's, I believe it was in Pennsylvania somewhere, and it just says, we hire on the spot. That was on the sign, and they're paying like $15 an hour.
Yeah.
They're like, we will hire you within 60 minutes. Just walk in here. Walk in here, fill out the application, we'll hire you right now. In that type of environment, why should people put up with this stuff?
I saw a similar sign that was like, we'll pay you today.
Yeah, it's like cash.
Like here's some cash.
Please take it.
Yeah.
All of these, I think, are highly positive developments. And the reason why it's not getting enough coverage, it's almost a 100% blue-collar phenomenon. Almost entirely, 100%. The white-collar workforce is going back to work. In many cases, they never stopped working or they're working remotely completely. Their wages are like relatively stagnant. They're getting like holiday bonuses or whatever. But the mobility of the labor is all within blue-collar work, not requiring a college degree. And that's why you don't hear a goddamn thing about it.
Blue-collar work to include the service industry.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And it is pretty fascinating. And again, you see the public full support. Total polar opposite of the totally polarized sectarian conflict that you'll hear all day, every day, reflected in every single cable news segment, no matter which channel you happen to be turned to. This is a really different phenomenon and a really different portrait of America that's happening here. And it gives me a lot of hope, because at the same time that you see, the reconciliation, it's just so depressing, right? It's like the most depressing thing ever, when you can't even get the most basic popular things that people vote for time and time again, when you can't even get those passed. And yet you see workers taking matters into their own hands and having an impact, not just within, their own communities and what they're able to win from their employers and the improvements they're able to make. But you do see there having to be some political response. And, you can see too, Republicans will take note that it will not be nearly so safe for them to engage in the overt union busting tactics that they've been engaged in comfortably now for decades. So there is a bit of a turning point here in terms of the labor movement and the possibility that they could seize the day. And again, if you're someone who believes in a multiracial working class politics, this is the most hopeful thing that you could possibly see. It transcends partisan divides. It does transcend education divides, because we saw, college-educated teachers. We see nurses and healthcare workers involved as well. It certainly transcends geographic divides. This is a truly coast-to-coast, blue state, red state phenomenon, and you love to see it. There's one other piece here, update on the John Deere strike, that we wanted to bring you from our friend Ken Klippenstein, who gets the best material. He gets the greatest leaks ever. So you will recall, as a little bit of setup here, that in order to break the strike, John Deere brought in their white-collar office workers to try to work on the factory floor. And within hours of the first day of them doing that, there was an ambulance rushed to the scene. It turns out there was somebody, crashed a tractor. These people are also being put in a horrible position, albeit I will say they could band together and refuse to work as well. But now, put that tweet back up for one more second. John Deere is basically banning the writing down of these accident reports. They've declared them confidential, following tractor crash by non-union worker per an internal memo leaked to Ken, of course. And a John Deere executive says they're not putting things in writing in order to prevent leaks to the media. So there may be more going on there in terms of accidents. Of course, we don't want anyone to actually get hurt, and the fact that they're putting people in this position is horrific. But Ken also got some great quotes here from some of the office workers who have been thrown into this situation. One of them said, "We're soft desk jockeys getting thrown into hard labor with little training." Another employee complaining about the lack of training put it more bluntly, "We are gonna get killed." So they are in an unconscionable position. Again, they could band together. They could say, we're not doing this. And a lot of them have expressed that they actually feel a lot of solidarity with blue-collar workers. Not only that, if you wanted to design and engineer a program to make your white-collar workers feel solidarity with the blue-collar workers, put them into their jobs and be like, how's this going for you? How does it feel to do this work? How does this feel on your body? Imagine losing every weekend. Imagine, the overtime that they ask you to do. Imagine coming in at this lower tier and not even having the solidarity that you should have with your brothers and sisters. So there you go.
And there's one more update from Jonah Furman, which just goes to show the lengths John Deere is. They said they would not be cutting 10,000 workers off of their health care as they had previously planned to do. But the members who actually called United Healthcare were told they were being cut off at midnight. And that was 16 hours ago. So It just shows they're trying to win this PR war, but their actions tell a very different story. And maybe we should just keep highlighting how these people continue to treat their employees.
Indeed. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.